Jason, can you hear me now?
I've got you, Joe. You have me?
Yeah, nice to see you. Ladies and
Hi.
gentlemen, Ange Giombetti from Wealthspire has entered the chat.
I had to check my face first. I did. I'm sure Jason did too. Like I just make sure it's a little.
I I just had tacos, yeah, I got to check the teeth, the whole thing.
Okay, I know I wasn't alone.
It's not Taco
I'm
Tuesday. You're
just helping.
cheating.
I'm just helping you.
Now,
I'm
I
in
figure
California, Joe. Every day is taco day.
that's true. And I think Ange just spent some time on the West Coast. I'm sure she'd get down with that.
I'm actually here now. I'm in San Rafael as we speak.
You go from Orlando 1 week to San Rafael the next week. Tough life.
I'm on a warm weather tour, although I was kind of tricked because when I got here it was frozen and my hotel in San Rafael was like, I'm so sorry, but the hot water, let it run for 15 minutes and then it'll get warm. And the key cards might not work on account of the cold and the heat. And I was like, listen, I live in New York half the time. Like this feels apocalyptic here.
I know the two of you at least sort of know each other.
I know of
We
you.
Right, I know of you. Yeah.
Well, and we're making new friends then, right? So,
Yeah.
in a weird happenstance, it wasn't long ago that I was moderating a panel with Gary and Mike LaMena on stage. So now I have their significant others in their business lives getting together for a chat on growth and marketing. So it's only fair to put you two together. So, thanks for playing along and jumping in with us today. Hold on to your hat. We'll get rolling here, all right? All right, everybody, we're back with another episode here of Marketing Matchup. I'm excited for this edition. We have two bright minds in the business joining us today. Angela Giombetti, one of my long time but short time BFFs in the industry. We've known each other for a few years, but it feels like longer than that. And Jason Gordo, a guy I've known through multiple iterations of his career, coming at it with two different perspectives. Ange runs marketing at Wealthspire, and Jason's co-founder of Modern Wealth, based everywhere, but he's in California. And so the two firms have a lot going on. We're really excited to bring them together. Here at Marketing Matchup, we have a show where we bring together some of the sharpest minds, including these two folks in financial services marketing. Here's the twist. Up until this moment, they didn't know they were doing this interview together. So we appreciate you playing along. The reason why we do this is that we want raw, unfiltered insights and takes on things that come up that impact marketers, ideas for other RIA firms, and things like that. So we're hoping that this spontaneous conversation yields some good ideas and some fun along the way. So let's get into it. Ange and Jason, I know you both well, but what I really want to dive into here is like, what is sort of the thing that's keeping your firms motivated and focused on marketing in 2025? What are the things that happen? Maybe why don't each of you start with a 2-minute primer, sort of the state of where things are at with your marketing and growth plans for 2025. Ange, can I pick on you first?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm fresh off of our Orlando 2025 Advisor Summit. We brought 260 people together. And the event, it's educational, but it's very growth focused. And I think Jason will probably agree with me that like the role of marketing has definitely shifted to just drive, like be a driver of organic growth and really owning that entire customer journey, that client journey. And we're growing inorganically, sure. And I think we are, like many firms, trying to find that secret sauce to what is going to drive organic growth in a way that feels good, that feels authentic. I think I said this on stage once. It might have been on one of your panels that I've never met an advisor that's like, I'm just here to make bank. Like I don't know any advisor that's like, I'm just here to cash a check. Like they're here because they believe in it. So for me, it's like, how do I match that advisor and their passion with people that want to work with them, like it's a rewarding relationship both ways. So that's the state of the state. And I'll say that what's motivating our advisors and our firms to grow is the firm recognizing growth marketing very intertwined and kind of shifting to this growth mindset at the firm in general has gotten advisors excited about what's possible. Growth no longer, it's not a dirty word anymore. It used to be like, oh gosh, it means I have to go out and sell and I have to do, like ask all my best clients for it's relationships, it's expanding relationships. So we've been able to just identify growth initiatives that are fun and exciting and get advisors excited and give them real, genuine opportunities to connect with people. So I'll just stop there.
Good stuff, Ange. So, Jason, what's shaking on your end?
Well, thanks, Joe, first of all, for having us. And
Yeah.
it's great to meet you today.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about each other, but this is the first time we've actually met. So, Joe, thanks for putting us together. That's fantastic. All right, so we've been at it 22 months, right? We're brand new in the industry. We launched in April of 23. And we've to date focused primarily on two avenues of growth. Number one, our inorganic strategy, going out and finding great partner firms to join. And in addition to that, our very first investments we made were in what we call the Organic Growth Hub, and some very young career professionals who are there to support the advisor and support advisor growth. So I'll give you a very quick background on the firm and then what we're focused on. So again, we launched in April of 23. We've had 13 partner firms join in that period of time. We're quite small relative to our peer group. We're somewhere around $7 billion of AUM today. With what we have joining in the first quarter, we'll be somewhere around a $9 billion firm, have about 165 team members at that point, and 16 or 17 office locations across the country. So we're just getting started. But we know that most of the people that we're talking to in the industry, most of our partner firms, and we talked to over 300 firms last year, most firms believe the industry stats. Like whatever you do, just read the industry press and believe it. Most firms are growing at 0 to 3% a year organically. That's just the truth. And we see it time and time and time again as we're evaluating businesses and we're looking for partners to join. Now, we've solved the growth problem, and I think our friends at Wealthspire have as well, for the advisors that are working with us at Modern. And the way we address it is we have a big digital footprint. We have a podcast that actually generates about $100 million a year of flow to our advisor community. We're using third-party referral channels like Smart Asset and a number of others. And we believe that growth, you should have 10, 12, 15 different veins of growth or avenues of growth pointed at the firm at all times. Don't be relying on the Schwab program or the Fidelity program. Those should just be icing on the cake. Have a real focus on driving organic growth. I think three things have to be true to drive organic growth. One is you have to have a war chest, the ability to spend money focused on that. The second is a team that could be first to what I call the suspect. They're not even prospects at this time, they're suspects. And then lastly, a process that's very efficient to take the suspect / prospect through so that they know what they're going to get when they meet with that advisor. And I think that we can go in many, many different directions. I can't wait to see where this conversation goes, but happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, that's a great setup. And already you've already changed the order, which I was going to ask things because of what you just said there, Jason.
Okay.
And I'm going to go back to something. I'm reading all the trade press. I'm reading the surveys by Cerulli and what Ensemble Practice puts out. I'm following that stuff, and we're all hearing the same things. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, if the average growth is 3 to 5%, there's obviously a barbell. People are doing better. But the thing that caught my eye, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, you can't ignore the fact, like when the BlackRock Ensemble Practice study came out and said 20% of RIAs are growing double digits. You can just do the math. How many are just a black hole, right? When they're doing nothing, they're the opposite direction. So I'll ask every single person that comes on my podcast this question: how do you get to be like that 20%, the top 20%? Like, what are like the common threads? I know we can go a lot of different directions, but I sort of encourage both of you to share one or two things you think are commonalities of the firms that are in that 20%. And Jason, go first this time.
Yeah, no problem. So I think, Chip Rome put out a study maybe a year ago now that said 77% of new AUM to the RIA community is going to 6% of the firms. That's an insane stat, right? And if you look at the growth of most of those firms that are growing at, the 20% that you're referencing, a lot of those firms are in the Schwab retail referral program or they're in the Fidelity retail referral program. And that's what's fueling so much of their organic strategy, right? But for firms that are not in those programs, I think having an extreme focus on driving organic growth. And again, it's those three things: having the ability to stand there and spend money every month, a war chest, having a team that is getting out and spreading the message. And then lastly, that process to take somebody through. Now, most advisors, I was an advisor for the first 16 years of my existence in this industry. And I could tell you, this is, again, I was an advisor for 16 years. We get fat and happy and lazy, and we forget to pick up the phone and call people, right? And we just don't have those meaningful, robust prospect meetings that got us to wherever we were at some point before we got fat, happy, and lazy, right? And so the way we've fixed it is, again, that organic growth hub and early career people that want to be financial advisors, and really getting that young, aggressive, hungry energy on the phones, working with what I call suspects or / prospects. So I think it's that extreme focus. It's having a war chest or the ability to spend money, and it's having a process to take people through. That's what the 20% are doing.
So, Ange, how would you counter that? What are a couple common threads of the winners here?
Well, first of all, I'm very animated, Jason, and I'm really trying to be professional. I actually warned Joe ahead of time. I'm going to try to be my most professional self. But there are a couple times I was like, preach.
Throw that out the window.
Yes.
Throw that professional stuff out the window. Let's just go.
It's just really validating because I agree with you completely on what you said about having this kind of war chest and stuff. I think so we put a lot of time and effort into integrated marketing campaigns. And basically that just means nothing's one and done. If we're going to do a podcast, it needs to be the white paper. It needs to be the digital campaign, the SEO. All of that has to work because nobody wants to waste any time. We've got now AI that kind of helps us here and there to automate some of this stuff. But marketing can do all of these things. And it's very focused, right? We've got the who we serve, and it isn't just high net worth people that make over 500. Like that's not a niche. That's not a target market. It's just dentists in Wisconsin or something. So creating these very targeted integrated marketing campaigns, which drives in a ton of leads and prospects and the third party programs that you mentioned, Jason. But then on the other side of it, just like Jason said, if you don't have somebody to pick up the phone that's going to give that consistent client experience, that's going to pay off that promise of all of that due diligence that leads do, because if they get a piece, if they go to a webinar, they're going to develop in their mind, oh, if I do business with Wealthspire, or if I do business with this advisor who is associated with Wealthspire, I am going to get this. I am going to feel this way. I am going to get this. This is the promise that you're making with me through my interactions with you before I even pick up the phone or send an email. If we don't have somebody to deliver on that promise on the other side, it's only half the work and we're just losing, right? Because we only get that first chance at a first impression. So it's definitely galvanizing the younger advisors that are like, oh, I get it. Like, it isn't sales like the old days, like my grandpa used to do. Like, I know how to reach people. I know how to work my networks. But there's so much to do with the even more seasoned advisors who just, that wasn't the culture. Like, I didn't grow up in the RIA culture with that kind of growth mindset. The phone just rang, right? Or people saw an ad and they just called you, or there were only 2 or 3 advisory firms in my neighborhood anyway. I'm going to call all 3 and decide which one I like the best. So what we've done is we've got the front end kind of marketing machine that drives the leads, but now we're actually investing in the program to help train, educate, and nurture the advisors at wherever they are in their career, the younger ones, through the more senior ones, to consistently give the right message, to align what they're saying with the brand that they're putting out there. And that has been sort of the winning formula for us for growth. So
I love both your comments, and I sort of have offshoots for both of them. One thing I'll say, so we talk about the custodian referral programs, and I know it might be sacrilege to say this in some corners. My take is you can't afford to be part of those unless you have strong organic growth plans. That should be after. If you're not already in business to grow, why would you grow with margin compressed revenue? I don't think you can justify your existence. I mean, eventually you're going to have to go sign up to be bought by someone else because you're not going to be able to sustain that. I mean, No one wants that
Absolutely.
tail on their revenue, I think. And I'm not in the business like you all, right? And so on that thought process, I want to shift to something else that you talked about when um, I, I remember once upon a time I was on stage with Jason or hearing him talk, and he talked about the idea of an integration engine. That sound familiar, Jason? Um,
Hmm.
and so one of the things that when I was thinking about that, like an integration engine, most people, when I talk to an advisor about integration, they talk about making sure their personnel is on board or technology up to speed or things the operations of the business. Later on, it comes in the marketing, but I kind of feel like now the integration engine, more to what you said, Ange, is that marketing is so much a part of making integrations work, right? And I want you to react to that because both of you have businesses that are in the business of acquiring, and you both have also
Yeah.
built organic growth processes. Walk us through, like, how do you react to that? Like, Ange, in your business, how quickly does marketing get involved to solve the integration needs?
It's funny that, I mean, the timing is really interesting because, we have done a lot of inorganic growth. And I don't know, Jason, if you've had the pain of like, it takes time, it takes forethought to integrate firms into ours. And Wellspire is fully integrated. So at the end, everybody is Wellspire. And it's painful. I'll admit it. Like the process is painful. Like cultural, always there's an alignment, right? Cultural alignment. But getting that tech to speak to each other, getting the data, oh my gosh, it's a monster to be like, I want to be able to say that we work with X number of attorneys that are, but when there's multiple CRMs, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to be here all day. So we're actually in the process of overhauling our technology, specifically our CRM. Maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but I don't care because that's how excited I am. And what I love about the CRM that we're building is it's starting with marketing in mind. Like a big part of this, a huge component is how are we going to track this from the minute the first, we have a scoring system in our process. So we know how engaged, right, a prospect is when they get to us. But to be able to capture that and integrate that into CRM and be able to like track it, like that's one of the biggest, I think, leapfrogs for marketing is that we have so many tools now to be able to measure success, like measure, campaign success. So that's what we're working on. And I feel like marketing is completely now at the forefront, marketing slash growth. There needs to be like a new word,
I agree.
success.
So Jason, how does that work at Modern right now when you apply the marketing thinking around the integration process?
Well, so just real quick, we like Wellspire, we're a 100% integrator, right? So common brand, common tech platform,
Yeah.
common custodial relationships, common investment management process, right? So integration is really messy, right? It's very, very messy. It's as Angela has mentioned, getting software to speak, tech to speak, getting the brand aligned, getting advisors aligned, telling the story, right? And we have a very specific recipe for success when it comes to firm integration. So it starts with transition, then we move to integration. And during that integration process, we're teaching, coaching, training advisors on delivering the modern model office way, right? And marketing, to Angela's point, if I'm saying to a particular group of prospects, this is what we do and how we do it and why we do it that way, and then we put that prospect appointment on your calendar, Joe, and you're an advisor at Modern Wealth, and then you go talk about a whole bunch of different things than what we just told the prospect you were going to meet about. That's a conflict in marketing message and our growth prospects and opportunities. So marketing coming alongside in the integration process, along with training and teaching people, this is the value proposition. This is how the client experience unfolds. This is how your life is going to be better by working with one of our advisors. And these are all the services we're going to provide. That marketing message and brand promise, coupled with a fully integrated and trained staff, have to be aligned. Otherwise, we're just confusing the consumer and we're going to frustrate them and we're never going to be successful in driving the business. I want to go back to the first question you asked about like what's making firms successful. This question actually brought me back to it. I had a meeting with an advisor in my hometown last week we away from his office, we just went and had a glass of wine, and he wanted to throw something at me. And he goes, "The last 15 people I've met with, I've not been able to onboard one of them. What do you think is wrong?" And I think this goes back to your first question, which is what are the 20% of the firms in the industry that are growing rapidly doing? And that is, it's the same process, the same experience, the same deliverable repeated over and over and over and over that allows them to be productive when it comes to meeting with prospects and converting them to clients. If every engagement is custom and unique and different, and you have a different thought process to the meeting, you bring different materials to the meeting, how is that driving consistency across your business? And I think that's what we find when we look at most what I'll call practices or cottage industry businesses, where it's one advisor and maybe a support person or two. It's kind of random and scattered and sporadic. It's not consistent and predictable for every client to experience the same thing. So when they make that referral to the advisor, if their friend is getting something completely and radically different than what they received, there's just confusion when they get together at the barbecue and they talk about what the advisor is doing for them. So I think that's super important, is consistency from client to client.
Well, and that begs the question. I mean, at what point does marketing become an extension of the client experience, right? In terms of how it really plays out, and you're nodding along there. It's and I laugh because being a CMO, you're not necessarily in every client meeting, but to be able to let the advisor know that what they're doing is really the front door of marketing in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
How integrated do you get with like the marketing component of the client experience, right? Is that something where it's advisors are leading that, or and you're a service to it, to the advisor client relationship, or is that something where you're Wealthspire is thinking about, okay, this needs to be all tucked together?
We're definitely supporting the advisor. I mean, the advisor is the face. It's the advisor leading. They're building the relationship. I said this before. In fact, your hot take about there were no CMOs 5 years ago, I was like, no, you did not just say that. But I was like, now that I think about it, there were only a few at some of the biggest firms. So it shows you how important marketing has become in this industry. But I remember 5 years ago, I was doing like this, my TED talk about how marketing is changing and how traditionally we were very front of the funnel. We were like, all I cared about was making you aware of the brand, bringing you to the well, and then leaving. I'm done. I've washed my hands of you and I'm done. And that was marketing's role traditionally. I might send you a newsletter here or there. Like that was the old school. And now we definitely take ownership of, once we get you there, what does it look like to make sure that you're paired with the right advisor? So we're continuing on that promise that you are getting this impression of this brand through onboarding. Like Jason said, consistency is everything. Because here's one component of that consistency. If your people don't believe in it, that it shows. Like your people need to feel like this is how I'm going to talk about Wealthspire or modern, like this is how we're going to talk about the firm. This is what we offer. And I can say it like that and we're all saying the same thing. That's important for us to make sure that we're educating. So it's through onboarding, and then it's through, maybe it's potential additional assets. Like now that we've built your trust, you like this relationship, you might let go a little bit of more of those assets. And then it's, ultimately we want you as a raving fan. We want you as an evangelist. We're there for every step of the way. And I guess the way I think of it is we're not so much leading as supporting, and definitely guiding whenever we see opportunities of, just tightening up that consistency. I don't know. I'd love to hear what Jason's thoughts are.
As you were talking, I went in my mind, we're Porsche people. We love Porsches. So my wife introduced me to the brand and I'm in love. And
Land Rovers.
Yeah, there you go. Right, like
there's two
really
in our
nice.
driveway.
Yeah, we have multiple Porsches, and we recently added one. And I'll tell you, like you go on the Porsche website, right, and a story is told, a brand promise is made. You walk onto the lot at the dealership, and you walk into the showroom, and the showroom matches the brochure. It matches the website. The brochure is super luxury, really nice. You haven't even sat in a car yet, and you're already falling in love with the brand, right? And the brand promise and the fun that you're going to have, the experience you're going to go through, the exhilaration of finally sitting in the car and putting your fingertips and your hands, wrapping them around that really well-built leather steering wheel, right? And so I think for advisors, as you think about how are they meeting you online? How are people meeting you? What message are they hearing? When they walk into your lobby, does the lobby experience match the online experience? Does the lobby experience match the brochure? Right? And now how you bring them into your office and in your environment. Does your environment match the brand promise that you're making online or what their referral source is telling them about you? Right? So stay at Porsche, right? Now we pick the car that we want to sit in, and he goes and gets the keys and puts my wife right in the driver's seat. Instantly, she's in love with the Porsche, right? We haven't even looked at price. That's not even a consideration because we know the quality, we know the value, we know the experience we're about to have, right? So then we go through the showroom. We end up acquiring another vehicle, as I mentioned a little bit ago. We have the delivery of the vehicle. Then I get an email from the salesperson 2 days later that says, that was your first delivery. Would you like to come in next week for a second delivery? Now that you've had some experience with the vehicle, would you like to come back and I can get a little bit deeper in the tech stack and show you exactly how to use all the functions in the car now that you've driven it around for a little bit of time and done a self-exploration? Does your brand brochure or business brochure match the value you're delivering? And does the lobby look the same? Does the conference room look the same? Is the experience the same that you're presenting online? And I think that advisors should think about that last awesome client experience they had themselves and what was involved in that. And then ask themselves critically, is that what my team is delivering to prospects and clients?
Well, I
Hey,
love the
Joe, can I
analogy.
say
Go
something?
ahead, Ange.
I want to say something because it's so related. Um, I'm, I feel you on that because right now I kind of want a Porsche. You're selling me. Um, what I
They're
love
amazing.
about these brands that we love though, because like for me, it's Land Rover, Range Rover, same thing. I get there. I'm excited before I even drive onto the lot. I know the experience I'm going to get. But here's what's interesting. Like I've lived in California. I now live on the East Coast and I also know that when I go into this place, there's going to be this local flavor. I know that in California, the San Diego vibe was just, it was vibing. Like I knew what I was getting. It was a consistent brand, but with a very local flavor. And I mean, I think modern is the same way. If you've got 17 or so offices, we have 23, I think. And it's the same thing. Like we don't want to take away that local feel because that's also important, I think, to clients.
So,
Local culture is what, like if you want to barbecue
Yeah.
in Kansas City, barbecue. If you want to go salmon
Yeah.
fishing in Washington, go salmon fishing. You want to eat Philly cheesesteak and when you're in Philly, go do that. Like be your local culture and brand.
Right.
Just deliver it in the modern way or in the
Yeah.
Wellspire way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Match your brand with the brochure and what you're delivering.
Totally.
so backing up a second here, part of the reason why I wanted the two of you together in this sort of this sneak attack interview in the marketing matchup is because both of you have the experience of bringing a brand from scratch. I mean, Ange, you've been around since the Wealthspire brand was born. You haven't taken that to market. Obviously, Modern's come up on a second birthday in several weeks. And also, both of you also had the experience of being at predecessor firms when they're absorbed into larger brands, right? And so when you're at that moment, whether you're spawning a new brand or sort of meshing, there's a decision needs to be made. What do you do first? How do you basically start that cycle of not only just introducing what you're going to market on the brand visibility efforts, but what are you doing? And I'm sort of asking this as both a context in terms of what you did do, but also if you're going about it today, what are some of the things in the marketing toolkit you think people should be deploying and thinking about doing when they're starting their marketing afresh? Whether it's rebooting what they're doing, or again, the next Wealthspire comes out, next Modern comes out. What are you telling them to do? Either one of you want to go take that first?
Okay. Well, so Wellspire had been around, I think, for almost 4 years when I joined. However, they didn't have marketing. So when I joined, I thought, okay, well, show me what you've done before. And there was like, well, what'd you bring? And I was, had a heart attack for 5 minutes, like, oh my gosh, you don't have any. That's fine. I got this. I got this. The very first thing that I did was you sort of assess, right? For me, it was assessing where the brand was in its very early stages. And this was a firm that grew up in the pandemic and there was no, I think, a consistent, a Wealthspire message, that brand promise, like Jason mentioned. So it was, how do we get there? How do I meet enough people? How do I get a flavor of these legacy firms that have basically come together to create Wealthspire? What is Wealthspire? So that was actually a super fun exercise to be like, well, who are we? And who needs to be at this table? Who needs to have a voice at this table to help us like champion what this Wealthspire is going to look like? That's the first thing that I did, was get to know as many people as possible, just mounds and mounds of collateral, because like Jason said, people coming with different pieces, our advisors were doing that because there wasn't a consistent way to do it. And I mean, I think that's old fashioned, but I think if you were starting a brand today, I think it's in the data. It's in assessing who your people are, where your strengths are. And if you don't have, I mean, I think that our mission and our vision were fresh. I think the ink was still fresh. Like, are we living this? Is this really, reflecting who we are? The other thing, I think Jason can agree with me on this. As you continue to grow, even or inorganically, you evolve. Like, your culture is evolving. You're like, it's continuously looking at, are these cultural values still where we are? These are priorities. Are they still the same based on who's joined us and who's left us and how we've changed? That's kind of, for me, it's very personal. I got to meet as many people as possible and looked in, got under the hood and looked at all the data. Who were we actually serving? Who we're serving, but on paper, this is who we're actually serving. That was, for me, kind of the beginning.
All right, people first. Jason, what are your thoughts? How would you get started, or what did you all do when kicking off Modern?
Yeah, well, it's a pretty shocking start to the firm, actually, in how we went about things. We had a code name, a project name that we were working under. We raised a bunch of money, and we had an acquisition to go do, 3 of them actually. And Mike Capelli, Gary Roth, and I, the 3 co-founders, are sitting around and we're saying, we don't even have a name for the company. We should probably name the thing. How are we going to do that? And we literally went to GoDaddy, and all of us in our homes were like, typing away in GoDaddy on a name, and modernwealthmanagement.com was a premium domain available for $5,000. So we bought that. And then we went to Upwork, which you can get anything done at Upwork. It's amazing, like legal work, tax work, marketing work, like you name a project, go to Upwork and you'll find amazing people that are doing side hustles. So we put just an ad out and said, we're willing to pay somebody we just needed a logo. We didn't even think it was a permanent logo. So we put a job out for $500, said, give us a logo. And we had a whole bunch of people around the world submit logo ideas. We picked one. We actually paid $750 for the logo and the color palette and the whole thing. That person has helped design web assets. That person's helped design our brochure. We made those first 3 acquisitions. It came with a marketing team. So we folded right into that marketing team, and that's how our brand was kind of established, and what we're doing is getting spread. But I want to talk about that for a minute. These businesses, I mean, Wealthspire, Angela, you're spending a lot of time and effort and energy thinking about Wealthspire and getting that name into communities and telling the story, right? And we're doing the same at Modern. Our whole marketing team, that's what they're focused on every day. And so is every other major RIA and acquirer in the industry. I don't think these are brands. These are businesses that have people that are belly to belly with prospects and clients delivering service. We have a brand promise. We have a marketing expectation. We have an experience we're trying to deliver, but this brand is never going to be, or the Wealthspire brand, is never going to be somebody that gets talked about at every dining room table across America. It's just not going, we're never going to be Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley, right? We're going to be really good advisories. You don't want to be. You want to be the opposite of that, really. But what you want is people to hear your brand message, listen to that, internalize it, go, that's the experience that I want to have. And then you have to deliver that experience when they walk through the front door. It's so important that those things are aligned. So before you even think about brand or marketing or experience, get in a room and be really intentional on a big whiteboard. Get as many brains in the room as you can. We brought 16 people to Kansas City to work on this exact thing. They were advisors from all across the firm, the most junior people in our organization. And we said, what has to be right for you to do a good job? And what is that job? What marketing materials do you need? What technology resources do you need? What's the process you're taking the person through? And who should be involved in that process at every step along the way? And, I might call that marketing or client experience or advisor experience. Angela might call it something else. But I think that strategic, what are we delivering, is far more important than the glossy brochure.
Agreed.
So I know we're getting towards, say, the eighth or ninth inning of this podcast here. So as we get towards the end here, a couple things that I want to ask. When I think about growth expectations and the marketing mindset, and we talked about how you align with advisors and how it aligns with the client experience, but fundamentally, coming back to it, like, you have to start somewhere. You're building a business, or you have an existing business, whatever it might be. Budgeting for marketing. How do you tell people what's the right amount of money to spend? Is it a percentage of the revenues? Is it just a set dollar amount each year? Is it a function of ROI of last year's marketing activities? Give me some juice on that. Ange, you want to go first?
It's so, like, I don't know, Jason, if you have the right formula for it, but because we're regional and we really focus on regional, there's the administrative budget, my marketing budget, it covers all the digital, it covers all that stuff. But the real growth happens, like Jason said, with people, and it's the region's budgets. How are they spending it? How are they thinking about the people they want to reach, the community things they want to do, the events they want to do, the local advertising they want to do, the content they want to put out? All of that stuff costs. And there is a formula around it. I think, there's one example that I'll use, and we have a female advisor in DC, and she's very growth focused. And she wanted to do a women's event specifically for like power women. And she said, this is the AUM I want in the room. This percentage of that AUM is going to be my clients because this is who I'm going to invite. This is how much the event is going to cost me. And this is what success looks like. And this is the timeline I want to do it. Now, not every situation and initiative is going to be that clear cut, but it's a fantastic outline, right? For me to go to other regions or other advisors who are like, I have this great idea. I want to do this car racing event at the F1 thing, and it's going to cost this much money, but all my clients are going to be there and it'll be great for the brand. Like, nobody tries to pull that on me anymore. Like Jason said, nobody goes, oh my gosh, I love that Wealthspire Gold. I must do business with them. Like, nobody does that. They're like, Amanda gets me, or Steve is just amazing. So whenever advisors come to me, or we know what's worked in the past, we say, hey, you did this, this, and this last year. They were actually successful. We can track against those things that you did. This is the revenue that came from it. Let's talk about what you want to do next year, and what maybe we level it up. So if we spent this much money, what does it look like for success from a market? And I know that, things don't convert immediately, but we can put some guidelines around that. We can put, what does it look like? What is your follow-up plan? Like, if you're expecting to partner with 3 COIs to do this event, and they're going to bring this much, and you know what I mean? Like, so I think that's how I kind of come to a number. It's very regional, even down to the individual advisors. Jason, you mentioned like some of those real, like, they're ready, these younger advisors. We've got those too. I will invest those dollars in some of these advisors that are like, I've got this great idea and I've thought it through and this is what it looks like. I'm like, hell yeah, bring it,
Jason, how do you tackle that at Modern?
Yeah, it's here's how we look at it. It's how much organic growth do we want to drive? And it's a big number. And based on our experience, how many suspects do we need to create to generate a prospect, which ultimately becomes a client? And what did it cost for that creation of a suspect list, to work a prospect list, to get to one client? And we base everything on $1 million client. or we work with the millionaire next door. So $500,000 to $10 million is right in our sweet spot. But we always start with, how do we attract $1 million relationship, and what will that create in revenue, and what did it cost to get that dollar of revenue? And we're trying to get to one-time annual revenue for the client is our cost of acquisition, right? And some months we're well below that, and some months we're a little above it. But if I want to drive $1 billion a year of organic growth, I can back into that and say, I've got to spend X millions of dollars on the following 10 or 12 avenues of growth pointed at my firm to generate that $1 billion of organic growth. Now, for us, we're brand new. We're not even 2 years old. Our objective is not quite $1 billion yet, but it is pretty lofty. And we are spending millions of dollars a year generating that organic growth for our firm, our partner firms. So I'm taking it more from an organic growth perspective and budget, not necessarily the glossy brochure, the webinar, the in-person event. We have those as well. We have a business in Boise. They just did one at Boise State above that blue football field. They had 300 clients in the room. They had some awesome external speakers come. It was a great event. That guy received a whole bunch of referrals from the event. People coming up and saying, "Hey, I've worked with you for 30 years. My friend, Fred and Terry want to meet with you," and they've got a bunch of money. So those events are really effective. We have a guy, Wayne. He does wine with Wayne. He also does wings with Wayne, which is airplanes, not chicken wings. But he does all kinds of stuff. And so those are effective ways to build a business as well. But when we're thinking strategically about a corporate vision and corporate growth strategy, it's all about driving organic growth through that organic growth hub and figuring out how many millions of dollars we need to allocate to that a year to be successful.
So when you think about that answer, it's scientific, Jason, right? It's like you've done this before. You've been through the road. Like you've actually worked, and it's logical. Most advisory firms, again, the 0%ers as well as the 3 to 5%ers or the negative folks, they don't have a budget or a plan. They don't know how to ascribe, measure, monitor, right? And you walk through sort of a case of how you evaluate budget based upon how you can measure back what happens. And so, in my mind, like, can you have a marketing team or marketing officer without having an analytics person in today's RIA world, right?
No, that's a vital member of the team right there.
Well, and it's sort of changed. And so, I think about that. One of the things that I believe we'll see. So I think Ange has heard me talk about this before, but I think we're sort of in a 7-year cycle of what I call the coming of age of marketing and wealth management. And it started with the first vanguard of people like Ange coming in and being their organization's first defined CMO, right? And so we've had some of them been around a while. We've had other podcast guests of mine that have been in the role for 10 years, but they were rare, right? You're talking about since 2019, 2020. I kind of say that COVID was the godfather of CMOs, because what happened was, instead of the golf outings, the steak dinners, the Rotary Club, the in-person marketing, everyone had to go to digital. They're using PR more, et cetera, and they needed someone who knew all those things, who could speak that language, both the advisor and to the end game user, and be able to go through that process. I think what you've hit on, we talked about organic growth, Jason, is that the end of the 7-year cycle is you're going to see the chief growth officer alongside a CMO, and tucked in there, whether you want to call CRO, CSO, chief business development officer, you're going to have like a triumvirate. And in there's going to be an analytics person or team that's going to make sure everyone's got their dashboard and know what they're doing, because you're going to have this professionalized function. Because I believe, and I'm sure you've seen this, if you have money spent on acquisitions, you need to justify the acquisition on top of your organic growth goals. So whatever that cost of capital was, it's your organic growth goal plus that. And so you're really going to need to professionalize. Am I drinking something, or do you agree?
You're 100% on spot. Yeah. And I'll tell you, we have a guy, a gentleman, his name is Michael Blazer, and he's watching this river of people coming at our organic growth hub, and then watching them go through the organic growth hub, and then get assigned to offer to advisors for prospect meetings, advisor meetings. and then following up with advisors on how did the Smith family, how was the meeting? What was the conversation like? Was the meeting set up appropriately? Did they have appropriate expectations? So he's literally watching a flow of traffic hitting the desk, watching that traffic go through the desk, and then following up with advisors post-meeting saying, did the desk do the right job setting you up for success? Right. And if not, what happened, or what did you have to unwind that we can now go back to the desk and coach around? But, Michael's watching this flow of data in and out of the firm, and he can tell us in seconds what channel's performing the best this week versus last week. And maybe that wasn't the channel that was performing best, 2 months ago, but he's informing us on where to spend the money in live real time with real time analysis, so that we can be effective and successful. It doesn't work without a data person.
Yeah.
How do I hack that system and put my agency in there in terms of how to spend the money? Is there a trick?
A plug-in.
So, but in all seriousness, so we're getting close to the end here. I'm going to ask you both to give your parting shot, your final takeaway, something you want to leave everyone with. But before we do that, we're going to have a little fun. So Ange unwittingly gave me the idea that I should ask this question because she dreamed of being an SNL writer in her younger days, right? And I still watch SNL. I don't wait up at 11:30 on a Saturday night, but I'll catch some of the bits. And usually I really live for weekend updates. So when I saw the SNL thing, I had to ask this question, and which SNL cast member, current or past, would play you in a sketch or in real life? And do you have anyone? I have some ideas.
Yes, actually, Chris Farley.
Chris Farley would play you?
Yeah, if I could pick anyone to be the embodiment of me, Jason, you don't know. You don't even know. But I am living in a van down by the river, and Tommy Boy's my favorite movie. So I just think that he had, rest in peace, just this infectious energy, and everybody, he brought people together. And that, I think, that was the magic of him. I'm Tina Fey, just because she was an excellent writer. I just thought she was such a sharp writer. So somewhere between a Tina Fey, Chris Farley combo.
Tina Fey is very Philly of you. Hollow ground around here in Gregory FCA headquarters. She's right down the street. Jason, any celebrities or SNL cast members for you?
Just because he's goofy, Jimmy Fallon. I have no talent like Jimmy. I can't sing like him. I can't dance like him. I can't entertain like him. But he's a goofball. I like watching him.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing we're all good at our day jobs, and we don't have to worry about performing on SNL.
Yeah.
So thanks for playing along. So all right. So back to the parting shot here. Each of you has.
Well, wait a minute, Joe. Who would you be? Who would you be played by?
Which SNL cast member? I don't know. I think I could probably get down and let Will Ferrell.
I was going to say Will Ferrell.
Yes.
The big, the big goofy blue eyes. Whatever the body comedy, falling down on stage, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
No, actually, it's funny if you think about all-time favorites. Adam Sandler is my favorite cast member, but no one really thinks of him as SNL so much since he's done so much since. But
Yeah.
he was fantastic, and he was the Chris Farley age. So, all right, last question, parting shot. Each of you has, what's one takeaway you want people to think about, whether it's advice, ideas? What would you want people? It could be about something to look out for from your firm. Anything to leave us with in terms of your world and the world of marketing.
Angela?
Well, the last question you asked, and Jason kind of followed up about data kind of evolving in real time, like the needs evolving in real time, that really resonates. And so I would say that the world of marketing is evolving in real time. We've shifted our marketing managers to be growth marketing managers, and we are partnering with technology. We're partnering with AI. We're partnering with a function at Wealthspire called Advisor Success. Everything is so integrated, and we've got so much more opportunity because of technology, because of data, because of what's possible, that I'm super excited about how marketing can help RIAs grow. And I also think it's a shameless plug for people who are like, I'd love to be in the financial services industry, but maybe I don't want to be an advisor like Jason. there's room in marketing. So that's my parting shot.
Awesome. Jason?
Yeah, I would say if you're not focused on marketing / driving organic growth, that's how I think about it. Your business is literally decaying, right? If you're that 0 to 3% organic growth grower, and organic growth is not P&L growth. It's not growing the top line. It's bringing in net new assets, new clients every year, regardless of the market, minus what you lost in clients, like terminations and distribution. So that 0 to 3% number is real across the industry. And you're effectively, your firm value is decaying if you're not outgrowing that 0 to 3%. And to have a healthy organization where the next generation advisor wants to live and exist and come work, you need to get rid of the fax machine, upgrade the technology, be current and modern in the way that you approach the marketplace, be super consistent in what your brand value is and brand proposition, be super consistent in the experience that they receive. And remember that last amazing client experience that you, the advisor, had. Is that the experience that your clients are receiving and your prospects are receiving? They walk through your front door. So I got to tell you, if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you want to have a business that's worth some real value, you need to focus on this. It's absolutely a must.
Well, that's a great point to leave it off on. I really appreciate it. The time went real fast. Believe it or not, there's 3 other things I wanted to get to with the both of you. This tells me I picked a good combination. Appreciate you both being part of Marketing Matchup, and we'll look forward to catching up out in the wild.
Sounds good. Great to
Thanks
meet
so
you,
much.
Jason.
Yeah, same. Good to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Marketing Matchup, a production of Gregory. If you like what you heard, please listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.